Hey there, folks. Okay, so this is a class overview of this 2D design theory. We've talked about how this class is going to kind of work in a day-to-day thing, but this is kind of what you can expect to learn and how we're going to go about learning more about 2D design. Okay, so we're going to talk about three different kind of categories of things and how we're going to attack them this semester. So we have materials, design principles and elements, and concepts. So we're going to look at a bunch of different materials this semester. We're going to go over design principles and elements, and hopefully through learning those two different things, we'll get better at controlling our concepts or ideas. Materials. What materials do you think we are going to use in this class? What are some 2D materials? So maybe you thought of markers or colored pencils or just regular pencils or watercolors. I don't know, some things that you maybe have seen before or have experience with. We're going to go a little bit more into some of those. So these are kind of the elements of professional 2D design or 2D artwork materials. So we're going to go into pencils. There's a whole range of pencils you can use, and these can create more value shifts that will create more realistic representations. We're going to talk about a couple different types of charcoals and how we can use those. We're going to go into paint and really talk about color theory, how to mix paint, how to manipulate it, what different types of paints are there. Even though we won't be using all different types of paints, we're just going to kind of start with acrylic, the base, but we can talk more about more of them. We're going to talk about ink and how to use washes. We're going to do a lot of collage. We're going to bring together imagery. We're going to talk about appropriation. So we're going to kind of really tackle a lot of really informative and important 2D materials. We're going to go over design principles and design elements. So I'm going to go into these way more in depth, but basically what's going to happen is we're going to have these sections. They're going to be about 2 to 3 weeks, and we'll go over a design principle and an element at the same time. We'll talk about how they've been used in history, how they've been used in art history, and then we'll talk about how you can use them in your work. So the design principles we're going to go over are unity, emphasis, scale, balance, and rhythm. Design elements are line, shape, pattern, texture, spatial illusion, value, and color. Now, if we bring all of these together and understand how to use them, then you're going to understand the idea of composition. So how can you lay out a composition, and how can you get it to say something that you want to? Which brings us to our third thing, concept. What is concept? All right, concept is something conceived in the mind. It's an abstract idea, a plan, or an intention. Now, having worked in art for a little while, I have to say that when I went back and looked up this definition of this word, I was actually kind of blown away with how perfect it was, because it really breaks down the procedure for how you make a concept. So a concept is something that's conceived of in the mind. So maybe you have an idea, it's a feeling, it's not totally tangible yet, it's liminal, meaning it's in between two things, it's not exactly one thing. And then you come up with an abstract idea, something that hasn't really been done before, or something that's new to you. And then the third thing is you come up with a plan or an intention. You come up with a way you're going to go about doing this, creating this artwork that conveys this idea. So for example, maybe you feel very strongly about global warming, you are upset about the state of the climate, and you want to make artwork that influences other people to care about that too. So you could paint a picture of this iceberg, or you could take a photograph of it. There's lots of different ways, but say you paint a picture of it, and you want people to care about this iceberg. But in painting this picture exactly how the iceberg looks, it's a representation of the iceberg. It's not exactly telling us anything new. It is what it is. It is the iceberg. So it is a painting, but it's not necessarily one with a strong concept yet. But if we take that iceberg and instead of painting it blue, we paint it red, we've changed the nature of the image. It's no longer a representation, it has a concept. And the reason why is when we look at this, we know that icebergs are supposed to be blue because they're cold, but by painting it red, we've made it warm. And that reminds us of the idea that this ice is warming, it's melting. And that kind of brings us a little bit closer to that idea of global warming. So instantly we look at this and we think of a warm iceberg, which reminds us of our warming planet. So the color red is a element of design, and so by manipulating one of those simple elements, we're able to change the whole nature of the conversation around this image. So this is just one little example of how we can talk about changing design principles and elements, using our materials correctly to showcase our ideas in the way that we want them to be seen. We want to influence our audience to understand what we're thinking and feeling. Okay, so that's just a quick little overview of how we can you can think about this upcoming semester.